Have you ever been invited to something just so someone could hurt you? I get invited to my ex-best friend's engagement party, only to realize she's marrying my ex-boyfriend, and the invitation was meant to twist the knife deeper. Back in college, I genuinely thought I'd found my people. You know that feeling when you meet someone and it's like the universe just clicks into place? That was me with Ariana freshman year. We were randomly assigned roommates, and within a week, it felt like we'd been sisters our whole lives. Ariana had this amazing way of making everything feel like an adventure. Midnight runs to get ice cream became legendary quests. Studying for finals turned into elaborate coffee shop crawls across campus. She had this infectious laugh that made everyone want to be around her, and somehow she chose me as her best friend. I felt so lucky. When Joe joined our little world junior year, it felt natural. He was in my European history seminar, this quiet guy who made really thoughtful comments about the reading while everyone else was clearly winging it. I'd catch him doodling elaborate medieval castles in his notebook margins, and something about that made my heart do little flips. The three of us became inseparable almost immediately. Ariana welcomed Joe into our friendship with such genuine warmth that I remember thinking how rare it was to find people who were just naturally good to each other. She'd invite him to our movie nights, include him in our inside jokes, and even helped me work up the courage to tell him how I felt. "You two are perfect together," she'd say, watching us with this sweet smile. "I can just tell he's crazy about you too." And she was right. Joe and I fell for each other in that easy, comfortable way that felt like coming home. We'd study together in the library, his hand finding mine across the table. We'd walk across campus talking about everything and nothing, and Ariana would either walk with us or gracefully give us space, seeming genuinely happy for us. I loved how the three of us worked together. Ariana never made me feel guilty for having a boyfriend, never acted jealous or left out. Instead, she became like our cheerleader, always suggesting fun things we could all do together. She'd plan elaborate picnics where we'd spend entire afternoons lying on blankets, debating whether we'd rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses. Joe would bring his guitar sometimes, and we'd sing terrible covers of popular songs, while Ariana laughed so hard she'd snort, which would make us all laugh even harder. Those are some of my happiest memories, if I'm being honest. Just the three of us being young and silly and completely comfortable with each other. Ariana was always so thoughtful about our relationship, too. If Joe seemed stressed about a test, she'd suggest I bring him his favorite coffee. If I was worried about something, she'd remind me to talk to him about it. "Communication is everything," she'd say wisely, like she was some kind of relationship expert at 22. She even helped me pick out a gift for our 6-month anniversary. We spent an entire afternoon wandering through vintage shops downtown, and she found this perfect old compass with an inscription about finding your way home. "He'll love it," she said. "It's so romantic and thoughtful. You're really good at this girlfriend thing. I feel so grateful to have a friend who genuinely wanted the best for my relationship. So many people talk about friends who get weird when you start dating someone, but Ariana just seemed happy that I was happy. I can see moments that maybe should have felt strange, like how Ariana always knew Joe's schedule better than I did, how she'd casually mention things about his classes or his family that I didn't remember him telling her, how she'd sometimes bring up little observations about his moods or preferences with this knowing look in her eyes. But at the time, it just felt like she was being a good friend. She cared about the people I cared about. She paid attention. She wanted to understand the important parts of my life. I thought I was the luckiest person in the world, having a best friend who loved me enough to embrace my boyfriend completely, and a boyfriend who was kind enough to welcome my best friend into our little bubble of happiness. I still want to believe that kind of friendship exists somewhere. Senior year started with such promise. Joe and I had been together for over a year, and everything felt like it was falling into place. We were talking about getting an apartment together after graduation, maybe moving to the same city, building something real. That's when Ariana started noticing things. Little things at first. She'd mentioned that I seemed distracted lately, or that Joe had looked confused when I'd referenced a conversation we'd supposedly had. "Maybe you guys are just stressed about graduation," she'd say with this concerned furrow in her brow. "Senior year is hard on everyone." I didn't think much of it initially, because honestly, she was probably right. We were all stressed. Job applications, thesis deadlines, the looming terror of real adult life. It made sense that we might be a little scattered, but then Ariana started bringing up specific incidents. "Hey, did you and Joe work things out after that weird moment at dinner Tuesday?" she asked one afternoon while we were studying in our dorm room. I looked up from my textbook, confused. "What weird moment?" "Oh." Ariana's face went carefully neutral. "Maybe I misread it. It just seemed like there was some tension when you mentioned Kenneth from your economics class." Kenneth was my study partner for our senior seminar. Nice guy, engaged to his high school girlfriend, absolutely zero romantic potential. I'd mentioned him maybe 3 times total. "What kind of tension?" I asked. "I don't know, Joe just got this look on his face, like he was upset about something." Ariana shook her head quickly. "I'm probably just being oversensitive. You know how I overthink everything. But the seed was planted. The next time I mentioned Kenneth in front of Joe, I found myself watching his face, looking for signs of upset. And you know what? When you're looking for something, you can convince yourself you're seeing it even when it's not there." Ariana's observations started getting more frequent, more detailed. "I ran into Joe at the coffee shop yesterday, and he seemed really down," she'd say. "He kept asking if you'd said anything about him to me." I told him you hadn't, but he seemed like he didn't believe me. Or, Joe walked me to class today after running into me at the library, and he kept asking these weird questions about your schedule, like whether you always had economics on Tuesdays. I thought it was sweet that he wanted to surprise you, but something felt off about it. I began second-guessing every interaction, every casual mention of classmates, every moment I spent studying without him. Ariana seemed so genuinely worried about both of us. She'd sit on my bed, hugging a pillow, with this pained expression as she talked about how she could see us both struggling. "I just hate seeing you two like this," she'd say. "You're both such good people, and you love each other so much. I wish I could do something to help." I started trying harder with Joe, texting him more, being more affectionate, going out of my way to reassure him. But the more I tried, the more confused he seemed to get, like my sudden attentiveness was suspicious instead of loving. One day, I was at the library until midnight working on my thesis, completely absorbed in research about medieval trade routes. I practically skipped back to the dorm, excited to text Joe about the breakthrough I'd had with my argument. Ariana was waiting up for me, sitting on her bed in pajamas with her laptop open, but something about her posture looked wrong, tense. "Hey," I said, dropping my backpack by my desk. "You're up late. We need to talk." Her voice was soft, almost gentle, but there was something heavy underneath it. "What's wrong?" Ariana closed her laptop and looked at me with these sad, sympathetic eyes. "I saw something tonight. Something I really didn't want to see." I sat down slowly on my own bed, facing her. "What do you mean?" "I was walking back from the student center around 10, and I saw you." She paused, like the words were physically painful to say. "You were with Kenneth." Outside Henderson Hall was where the economics department had offices. Kenneth and I had never met there. I'd never even been there at night. "Ariana, that's impossible. I was in the library until I saw you kissing him." Her voice broke slightly. "I stood there for like 5 minutes, hoping I was wrong, hoping it was someone who just looked like you, but it was definitely you." The world tilted sideways. Nothing she was saying made any sense. "Ariana, I was in the library. Ask Linda at the front desk. She saw me there until closing time. I have my swipe card records. I can prove. Maybe you left for a while? Maybe you met him and came back." Ariana's eyes were filling with tears now. "I'm not trying to attack you. God, I wish I hadn't seen it. You didn't see it because it didn't happen. I would never cheat on Joe. Never." "I know you wouldn't want to hurt him," Ariana said quietly, "but sometimes things just happen. Sometimes we make mistakes when we're stressed or confused or—" "Stop." I stood up, pacing the small space between our beds. "This is insane. You're talking about me like I'm some stranger. You know me. You know I would never—" "I do know you," Ariana interrupted, and her voice was so full of pain and love that it made me stop pacing. "That's why this is killing me. That's why I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for hours." She pulled out her phone. "I took pictures," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I thought maybe you'd deny it, and I wanted to be able to prove what I saw. For Joe's sake." She showed me her phone screen, and I swear my heart actually stopped beating for a moment. I was outside of Henderson Hall, kissing someone who looked like Kenneth from behind. Except it wasn't me, but it looked exactly like me. Same hair, same jacket, same build. The photo was taken from far away at night, but it was clear enough to be convincing, clear enough to destroy everything. "Ariana," I whispered, staring at the image. "This isn't me." "Honey," she said, and her voice was so gentle, so full of compassion. "I understand that it's scary to admit, but denying it isn't going to help anyone." I looked up at her, this person I trusted more than anyone in the world, and saw nothing but love and concern in her eyes. She really believed what she was saying. She really thought she'd caught me cheating. How do you argue with photographic evidence? How do you convince someone that their own eyes are lying? "Are you going to tell Joe?" I asked, because suddenly that seemed like the only thing that mattered. Ariana's face crumpled. "I have to. You know I have to. He deserves to know the truth." The next morning, Joe showed up at my dorm at 7 a.m., looking like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red, and his hair was messy, and he had this expression I'd never seen before, like he was looking at a stranger. "We need to talk," he said, and I knew Ariana had already shown him the pictures. I tried to explain. I showed him my library swipe card records, my thesis draft with timestamps, my text messages. I begged him to believe me, to trust what he knew about me, instead of trusting a photo taken in the dark. But Joe had already made up his mind. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. If someone I trusted had shown me photos of him kissing someone else, would I have believed his denials? "I need some time," he said after I'd exhausted all my arguments. "I need to think about this." He never came back. A week later, I heard from a mutual friend that Joe had been seen around campus with Ariana. Just as friends, supposedly. She was helping him through the breakup, being a shoulder to cry on, and sometime after that, they were dating. I moved out of the dorm and finished my senior year living in a single room in the graduate housing complex. I stopped going to places where I might run into them, I graduated 2 months early and moved across the country for a job I didn't really want, just to get away from the wreckage of everything I thought I knew about love and friendship and truth. I spent years wondering if maybe I really had done something wrong, if maybe I'd blocked out a moment of weakness, or if stress had made me act in ways I couldn't remember, because the alternative, that someone could fabricate evidence so convincing, could lie so skillfully while looking at me with such loving concern, felt too dark to accept. People aren't supposed to be capable of that kind of calculated cruelty, especially not people who know exactly how much it will destroy you. 5 years passed, like a strange dream. I built a whole new life, made new friends, even dated a few people. I really believed I'd moved on and learned to trust again, the way people do after they've been hurt, but still want to believe in goodness. Then last Tuesday, I found a cream-colored envelope in my mailbox with elegant calligraphy addressing me by my full name. Ariana Marie Davidson and Jolio Bowery request the honor of your presence. I had to read it 3 times before my brain could process what I was seeing. My Ariana, my Joe, getting married. The strangest part was how genuinely happy I felt for them in that first moment. Like my immediate reaction was this warm bubble of joy because people I'd once loved were celebrating something wonderful. Even after everything that happened, some part of me still wanted them to be happy. That has to count for something, right? The wedding was in 2 weeks, in our old college town, at the same botanical garden where Joe and I used to study sometimes, sitting under those huge oak trees. And they'd invited me. After 5 years of zero contact, they wanted me there for their most important day. I kept staring at the invitation, trying to understand. Maybe it was one of those situations where you invite everyone you've ever known because you want to share your joy with the whole world. Maybe they'd genuinely forgiven whatever they thought I'd done and wanted to include me in their happiness. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something bigger happening here. Some kind of olive branch being extended. I mean, if you really think about it, inviting someone to your wedding is such a gesture of trust and inclusion. You're saying, I want you to witness the most important moment of my life. I want you to be part of my joy. So I RSVP'd yes. I bought a new dress, nothing too fancy because I didn't want to upstage the bride, but something pretty enough to show I was taking their invitation seriously. I even got them a gift from their registry, this gorgeous set of serving bowls that I thought they'd use for years and maybe sometimes remember that I'd wished them well. I arrived at the botanical garden with butterflies in my stomach, genuinely excited to see them again. I'd practiced what I'd say. Congratulations, you both look wonderful. Thank you for including me in your special day. I wanted to be gracious and kind, to show them I'd grown into someone who could celebrate their happiness without any lingering bitterness. I found a seat toward the back. I didn't want to presume too much familiarity, and looked around at the other guests. I recognized a lot of faces from college, people who'd been part of our extended friend group, but the way they looked at me when they noticed me sitting there, it wasn't the warm recognition I'd expected. It was more like surprise. Uncomfortable surprise. During the ceremony, I kept getting distracted by the timeline everyone was mentioning, people talking about how Joe and Ariana had been together almost 5 years now, how they'd started dating right after graduation, how romantic it was that they'd found each other so quickly after college, 5 years, right after graduation. But that would mean they got together immediately after Joe and I broke up, like within days. I tried to focus on the actual ceremony because it really was beautiful. Ariana looked stunning in her dress, and Joe looked so happy. When they said their vows, you could see how much they loved each other, and that made me feel warm and hopeful about love in general, even if my own love story with Joe hadn't worked out. But during the reception, the timeline thing kept nagging at me. I was standing by the dessert table. They had these amazing little lavender cupcakes when I heard Joe's college roommate Cameron talking to another guy I didn't recognize. I still can't believe how fast it happened, Cameron was saying. One day Joe is heartbroken about his girlfriend cheating, and like 2 weeks later he's head over heels for Ariana. I mean, I guess she was always around, but still. Love works in mysterious ways, the other guy replied. 2 weeks. Joe had been with Ariana 2 weeks after our breakup. I felt this strange disconnection from my own body, like I was watching someone else's life happen, because the math wasn't adding up the way I'd always understood it. I'd assumed Joe and Ariana had gotten together slowly, over months of shared grief and mutual support. That made sense. But 2 weeks? I found myself walking over to a group that included Becky Swift, who'd lived on our floor junior year. She'd always been friendly to all of us, and she gave me this bright smile when she saw me approaching. "Oh my gosh, hi," she said, giving me a hug. "I can't believe you're here. That's so mature of everyone." "It's a beautiful wedding," I said, because it was true. It really is. And honestly, I'm just so happy they found each other, you know? Especially after that whole messy situation senior year. "What do you mean?" Becky's face went carefully neutral. "Oh, you know, just everything that happened." But I didn't know. Not really. I'd lived through it, but I'd never heard how other people had understood the situation. "Becky," I said quietly, "can I ask you something? What did people think happened between Joe and me?" She looked uncomfortable, glancing around like she was checking who might overhear us. "I mean, everyone heard that there was someone else. And then Joe was so hurt, and Ariana was there for him, and..." She trailed off. "It's ancient history now, right?" "Right," I said automatically. Ancient history. But something was crystallizing in my mind, a terrible, impossible thought. I excused myself and went to find the bathroom, needing a moment to think. But as I was walking back across the reception area, I saw Ariana standing alone by the gift table, looking directly at me with this smile I'd never seen before. She walked over to me, beautiful in her wedding dress, practically glowing with happiness. "I can't believe you came," she said, and her voice had this tone I couldn't identify. "I honestly wasn't sure you would." "Of course I came. Thank you for inviting me. Everything is so beautiful." "It really is, isn't it?" Ariana looked around at her perfect wedding with satisfaction. "Joe and I have been planning this for months. We wanted everything to be absolutely perfect." She looked back at me with that strange smile. "You know, I always wondered if you'd figure it out eventually. You were always so trusting, so willing to believe the best in people. It was actually kind of sweet." My heart started beating faster. "Figure what out?" Ariana stepped closer, and when she spoke, her voice was so quiet only I could hear her. "The photos, Aura. They were so easy to fake. You wouldn't believe how simple photo editing software has gotten, and finding someone who looked like you from behind. That girl from my photography class was almost your exact height and build." The world went completely silent around me. The music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, everything just stopped. "What?" "I mean, I had to be careful about the timing and the lighting, but honestly, you made it so easy by being so predictable. Library every Tuesday until closing, same route back to the dorm. I just had to make sure Joe would be convinced. I couldn't breathe, literally could not get air into my lungs." "Ariana," I whispered. "What are you saying?" She tilted her head, studying my face like I was something interesting under a microscope. "I'm saying I won," she said simply. "I wanted him, and I got him. And the best part is, he never even suspected. He still thinks you betrayed him. He still thinks he rescued himself from a cheater and found true love with his best friend." The reception was still happening around us. People dancing, laughing, celebrating. But I felt like I was underwater, watching it all from some terrible distance. "Why are you telling me this?" I managed to ask. Ariana's smile widened. "Because I wanted you to know. I wanted you to understand that I won completely. Not just Joe, but everything. I wanted you here so you could see exactly how perfect my life turned out, and so I could finally tell you how easy it was to take it all away from you." She paused, looking around at her beautiful wedding again. "Plus, I thought you deserved to know the truth. After all, what are friends for?" "I don't understand," I finally whispered, because honestly, I didn't. Ariana's smile got even wider, and there was something in her eyes I'd never seen before. "Oh, honey," she said, and her voice had this patronizing sweetness to it. "You really don't, do you? Even now, you're still trying to find a way to make me the good guy in this story? But I felt like a child trying to understand why someone would hurt animals for fun. But you loved me. We were best friends. You helped me with everything. You celebrated when Joe and I got together. I celebrated because I knew it wouldn't last." Ariana smoothed down her wedding dress. "You were always so naive, Aura. So trusting. It made everything so much easier." "You cried when you told me about the photos," I said desperately, grasping for any piece of the Ariana I thought I knew. "You were so upset about having to hurt me." "I'm actually pretty good at crying on command," she said casually. "Drama club in high school. Comes in handy more often than you'd think." "But why? If you wanted Joe, why didn't you tell me? We could have talked about it. We could have figured something out. Because that's not how it works in the real world, Aura. You don't just talk things out when you want something someone else has. You take it." "That's not true," I said, and I could hear how small my voice sounded. "People can be honest with each other. People can work things out without lying and manipulating and—" "God, you're still doing it," Ariana interrupted. "Even after everything I just told you, you're still trying to believe that people are fundamentally good. It's actually kind of pathetic. I'd never heard Ariana talk to anyone that way, let alone me." "I need to tell Joe," I said suddenly, because that seemed like the only thing that made sense. "He needs to know what really happened." Ariana's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Go ahead. Tell him. He deserves to know the truth." "Does he?" Ariana tilted her head. "Think about it, Aura. Joe has been married to me for exactly 45 minutes. We've been together for 5 years. We have a house, a dog, a whole life together. And you want to destroy all of that because of something that happened in college?" "I want to destroy the lies," I said, and my voice was getting stronger. "I want him to know that I never cheated on him, that I never betrayed him. And what do you think that's going to accomplish? Do you think he's going to leave me and come running back to you? Do you think this is some romantic movie where true love conquers all?" The way she said it made me feel stupid for even thinking it, but that wasn't why I wanted to tell him, was it? I just wanted the truth to exist in the world instead of living forever with this lie. "I think he deserves to make his own choices based on real information," I said. "How noble of you." Ariana's voice was dripping with sarcasm. "The righteous ex-girlfriend, here to save the day." I started walking away from her, toward the dance floor where I could see Joe spinning some little girl around, probably his niece or something. He looked so happy, so carefree, and for a second I hesitated. Maybe Ariana was right. Maybe telling him would just cause pain for everyone involved. Maybe some lies were kinder than the truth. But I spent 5 years questioning my own memory, wondering if I was capable of betrayal I couldn't remember. The relationships I'd sabotaged because I didn't trust myself not to hurt people. The therapy sessions where I'd tried to figure out what was wrong with me, that I could do something so cruel, and then block it out. Joe needed to know. Not for us, there was no us anymore, but for him. Because living a life built on lies isn't really living at all. I walked up to him just as he was setting the little girl back down. She ran off giggling, and Joe turned to me with this surprised but genuinely warm smile. "Aura," he said, and there was so much emotion in his voice. "I can't believe you're here. That means everything to me. I wasn't sure if you'd come." "Joe, I need to talk to you about something important." His face immediately went serious. "What's wrong?" "The night Ariana showed you those photos of me supposedly cheating," I said quietly. "I was in the library until closing time. I have records. I can prove it." Joe's expression didn't change for a moment, like his brain was buffering. "Aura, we've been through this. I saw the pictures. Ariana saw you." "Ariana lied." The words came out stronger than I expected. "She just told me. She faked the photos. She hired someone who looked like me. She planned the whole thing." Joe went very still. "That's impossible." "Ask her. She's standing right over there by the gift table, and she looks very proud of herself." Joe turned to look at Ariana, who was indeed standing exactly where I'd left her, watching us with that same strange smile. "This is our wedding day," Joe said, but his voice sounded uncertain now. "Why would you say something like this today?" "Because she invited me here specifically to tell me. She wanted me to know how clever she'd been. She wanted to see me realize that she'd won." I watched Joe's face as he processed this, and I could see the exact moment when doubt crept in, when he started remembering things that hadn't quite made sense at the time. "Joe," I said gently, "you know me. You know who I was back then. Do you really believe I was capable of cheating on you and then looking you in the eye and lying about it?" He was quiet for a long time, staring at Ariana across the reception area. "The timeline was always weird," he said finally, so quietly I almost didn't hear him. "How quickly Ariana and I got together afterward." She said it just happened, but looking back, "It didn't just happen," I said. "She planned it." Joe walked away from me then, straight across the dance floor toward his new wife. I followed at a distance, not wanting to interfere, but needing to see how this played out. "Ariana?" Joe said when he reached her, and his voice was carefully controlled. "Aura just told me something interesting." Ariana's smile faltered for just a second before snapping back into place. "Oh? What's that?" "She said you faked those photos, that you planned the whole thing to break us up." "That's ridiculous," Ariana said immediately. "She's just jealous, Joe. She can't stand seeing us happy together. This is exactly the kind of thing she'd make up to try to ruin our wedding." But Joe was studying her face with this intense focus, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "Show me your phone," he said. "What?" "Show me your phone. If Aura is lying, you won't mind proving it." Ariana's composure cracked just a little. "Joe, this is insane. It's our wedding day. Why are you listening to her over me?" "Because," Joe said, and his voice was getting louder, "I'm starting to remember things that didn't make sense at the time. Like how you always knew exactly where Aura would be. Like how you had those photos so quickly. Like how you seemed almost excited to show them to me. People around us were starting to notice that something was wrong. The music was still playing, but conversations were getting quieter as guests turned to watch whatever drama was unfolding between the bride and groom." "You're being paranoid," Ariana said, but her voice was getting higher, more desperate. "Aura is manipulating you, just like she did back then. She's jealous and bitter, and she wants to destroy our happiness." "Then show me your phone," Joe repeated. Ariana clutched her purse tighter against her body. "I don't have to prove anything to you. I'm your wife. You're supposed to trust me." "The way you trusted me when you showed me those photos?" Joe asked, and then Ariana's mask finally slipped completely. The sweet, concerned expression disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. "Fine," she snapped. "You want the truth?" "Yes, I faked the photos. Yes, I broke you up. And you know what? I'd do it again. Because I loved you, and she didn't deserve you, and I knew we'd be perfect together." "Which we are." Joe stared at his wife of less than an hour, with this expression of complete devastation. 5 years, he whispered. "We've been together for 5 years based on a lie." "Based on love," Ariana corrected desperately. "Everything I did was because I loved you. We're happy, Joe. We're perfect together. Don't let her ruin that." But Joe was already walking away, toward the exit, leaving his new wife standing alone in her wedding dress in front of 100 stunned guests. I found myself following him, not because I thought we could pick up where we'd left off, but because he looked so lost and broken, and I couldn't just let him walk away alone. "Joe," I called when we were outside the garden. He turned around, and I could see tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry," he said. "Aura, I'm so sorry. All these years I thought, God, what you must think of me." "I think you were lied to by someone you trusted," I said. "That's not your fault." "I should have believed you." I should have known you'd never do something like that. You couldn't have known. She was very convincing. We stood there in the parking lot while behind us, the wedding reception dissolved into chaos. Guests leaving, family members arguing, the whole beautiful celebration crumbling apart. What do we do now? Joe asked, and he sounded so young and confused. I said carefully, you figure out who you are when you're not living someone else's lie. And I go back to my life and try to remember what it feels like to trust people again. Is there any chance? He started, then stopped himself. No, that's not fair to ask. What? Is there any chance we could try again? Start over. I looked at this man I'd loved so completely 5 years ago, this person who'd believed I was capable of betraying him, and I felt this complicated mix of sadness and closure. I don't think so, I said gently. Too much has happened. We're different people now. Joe nodded like he'd expected that answer. Will you be okay? Yeah, I said, and I realized I meant it. I think I will be. Will you? Eventually. I drove back the next morning with this strange sense of lightness, like I'd been carrying around a heavy backpack for 5 years and had finally been able to set it down. The truth was out there now, the lies had been exposed, and while I felt sad about all the time that had been lost, I still want to believe that most people are fundamentally good. I think Ariana might be the exception rather than the rule, at least I hope she is, because the alternative, that people are routinely capable of such calculated manipulation, seems too sad to accept. Maybe that makes me naive. Maybe I should be more suspicious, more guarded, more prepared for betrayal. But I'd rather be occasionally disappointed by people's capacity for cruelty than constantly disappointed by my own capacity for cynicism. Some things are worth protecting, even if they make you vulnerable. Trust is one of them. Hope is another. I'm keeping both.